Hi everyone, I'm Brenda Horton, bringing you another episode of Life Legacy Project, where I interview entrepreneurs from startups to seasoned professionals and have them share their story with us so that we can learn from their failures as well as their successes. Today's guest has been a pioneer and leader in the organic and natural food industry for over 37 years. The topic of natural and organic foods is a passion of mine. So when I heard Michael Funk share his story at a business event earlier this year, I knew I had to bring him on the Life Legacy Project show and have him tell his story on how he went from picking fruit to becoming chairman of the board of United Natural Foods, Inc., a distribution company of natural and organic foods with $6 billion in annual sales. Today, United Natural Foods operates 28 distribution centers, representing 7.6 million square feet of warehouse space. The company carries more than 60,000 products and employs over 7,500 people. Michael, welcome, and thanks for having us here in your beautiful home today.
Thank you, Brenda. Happy to be here with you today.
So I grew up in Austin, Texas, where Whole Foods is and where they got their start. And I've always been fascinated about organic and natural food. It's always been an interest of mine. So did you grow up being fascinated and interested in organic food, or is this something that you came into later in life?
Yeah, I would describe my childhood as a pretty normal, middle class, growing up in the suburbs of Sacramento without any major enlightenment from my family or neighbors. But as I grew up, and left the house, I became interested reading books, like Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, or Jethro Kloss' Back to Eden, some of those classic books. And it really inspired me about the connection between diet and health. And I became a vegetarian, and I really wanted to educate myself about all the things that I could do to live a healthier lifestyle. And the idea of finding fruit and vegetables that weren't sprayed with pesticides became a passion of mine. So it really was just an extension of my life's interests.
So what was your first job out of high school?
Well, I couldn't wait to get out of high school. In fact, I think I only went 3.5 years and got out, and I had no desire to go to college. I was just too impatient. I wanted to get on with my life and do something. I knew Sacramento County was hiring garbage men, or as we said, sanitation technicians, and it paid really good money for the time. You could look any way you want, let's just say, and for someone who had their hair long and beard at the time, there wasn't a lot of jobs you could always get without cutting your hair, so it was perfect for me then.
Right. So how long did you do that?
Well, I probably did that for a couple of years. I was very frugal and saved my money. Was able to have a little bit of a savings account. I always wanted to really, I think my real dream was to live off the land, to be, before we had the word sustainable, it was really to live a kind of a sustainable lifestyle. And maybe in some sense I was a frustrated farmer wanting to get close to nature. So I think in the back of my mind I was saving money to buy a piece of land.
Okay.
Of course, land was expensive in California, and I never was able to quite do that at the time. But I was saving money, and it ultimately led me to be able to, capitalize the business with like $5,000 or something.
Okay, so after that job, you started picking fruit, right? You decided you wanted to go and work on some farms, and then that's what led to your distribution company. But let's go back before we jump ahead. Talk about those early days when you were picking fruit and you had your first opportunity. You got the idea for Mountain People's Warehouse.
Yeah, I don't know if I got the idea picking fruit, but there was an opportunity to do a few of the farm picking jobs, and growing up in the Sacramento Valley, they're all over. And I know the most important one was an apricot job where I was wearing gloves because I didn't want to get pesticides on my hands, and the farmer walked by me and asked me why I had gloves on. I told him I was allergic to pesticides. And he said, well, you don't have to worry because I haven't sprayed pesticides for years. And a light bulb went off on my head at that point, and I said, well, do you mind then if I pick this fruit and sell it? I know some people that might want to buy it. And so one thing led to another, and before I knew it, I was selling those apricots out on the street, and then I was looking for store co-ops that I could sell them to. And besides the fact that it was 105 degrees and the apricots, I think spoiled in about 2 days if I didn't sell them, I realized I could actually go out and find other farmers that were growing other crops and see if I could, make a living at this. But I never really thought it would become a business. It was just something a 21-year-old at the time was, looking for an opportunity.
So when did the idea pop into your mind that, ooh, I could make a business doing this? I could actually, build a company with this. How did that come into play?
I think it was really, it just happened. I mean, I think at the time, as a person that grew up in the 60s, a counterculture hippie basically, the idea of being a businessman wasn't really something.
It was a bad word.
It was a bad word. So no one aspired to be a businessman.
Right.
We were trying to do something different.
Right.
But I think, when I saw that there was, there started to be a demand for this, that people were really excited when I took them the unsprayed apricots, and that there could be potentially a job. I continued to work. I went back to working the garbage job in the morning. I got another garbage job, and I would do the fruit picking in the afternoon. And I did that, both of them, for a while because I really didn't think it would work and turn into a real business. And I didn't want to cut the cord of my real day job. But I did. My first wife and I had a child, and when she was born, the day she was born, at our home there in Sacramento, I decided to quit the garbage and devote my full energy to this new business. And at that point, I was kind of cutting the cord. It was a very risky decision.
Yeah.
But, went from there and made $100 a week for probably a year and a half or 2 years, but slowly over time build it up to something we could support ourselves.
Let's talk about those early days. So no VC funding, no investors, just grassroots, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, sweat equity. How did you go about picking your first team, the systems that you put in place? So let's talk about that, because you're now the chairman of the board of United Natural Foods, and that was a long time ago. So I'd love to have you take us back and talk about those early days.
Yeah, so long ago that I have to stretch myself to remember something. But we got to remember, there was no business plan. I didn't have any business experience, no college training or anything like that. So we were just kind of making things up as we went along. From 1976 to 1984, we never made a penny. We basically just struggled. Thankfully, I always say the bank system was such that it took 8 or 9 days for checks to clear. Otherwise, I don't think we would have ever made it, And,
yeah.
I used to write those checks and just kind of do a little prayer that the mail somehow lost some of those checks. But, so it was, I think we were learning on the fly. As time went on, I realized, I needed to get more efficient and really focused on the operation piece, the trucking piece, and tried to reduce our expenses to stay afloat because the sales still were very small. About 1984, though, there was really an explosion of, I think, media attention and health interests that started to become more mainstream. And from 84 to 96, we grew at an average of 50% a year, so it was really unbelievable.
And this is Mountain People's Warehouse.
Yeah, Mountain People's Warehouse.
50% growth rate. Wow.
So that's doubling your company every other year.
Yeah. And so obviously there were growing pains and just, trying to figure things out. Talk about some of your biggest mistakes or failures during that time. I think, a lot of successful people love to focus on their successes, but I think we also learn a lot from mistakes that we make along the way. So can you share a specific story that really, maybe had a little setback?
Well, I think in the big picture, probably the hardest thing for most entrepreneurs or business people is learning how to manage people. The personnel decisions or the personnel skills, they're not easily taught in school. They're not easily learned. I think the school of kind of hard knocks is the way you learn those. And I was kind of a nice guy. I had a hard time with firing people. I had a hard time giving up on people, and I ended up having some people stay way too long, and realizing that you got to make those hard decisions, and you have to, in many cases, cut your ties with people, move on, attract the better talent or better energy to the company. And it took me several years to figure that one out. So that was, I think, something most people can probably relate to. Again, managing people part of the business is so critical. The other thing I would say is I look back and I realized that I was trying to be the role model. I was trying to lead by example. I wanted to be the first one there and the last one to leave, and that type of thing. I worked, really hard, and I set that example for everybody. But I also didn't have a sense of keeping a balance. And over the years, here we were trying to be creating a more healthier lifestyle for people, and I was finding myself leading a fairly unhealthy lifestyle in terms of stress level, in terms of no time for any exercise or any free time. I mean, there was one period in the 80s where I went 7 years without a vacation.
Wow.
And, those are the kinds of things I look back on now, and I thought, truly to lead by example, I needed to create a more of a not only working hard and that type of culture, but also you got to take care of yourself. If
be more balanced.
If you're not taking care of yourself on the personal level, you can't tap into the creative juices you need to make the right decisions to grow these businesses. And I think not only did I burn myself out a little bit, I burned some of my key people out too.
Yeah. So kind of jumping ahead, what kind of things do you do today that bring you more balance into your life, where you go, okay, this is what's going to restore me and rejuvenate? What kind of things do you do?
Well, I think it was about, late in my career, I was still, CEO of the company, but I realized I didn't have to really be to the office at 6 a.m. I could come in at 7:30, and I could spend an hour every morning walking in the woods, and not only getting some exercise, but again, what I said earlier about tapping into some of that creative energy. I would solve a lot of my problems going on those walks, and hit the ground running, and no one noticed that I was in at 7:30 instead of 6 o'clock. It was kind of silly. So that kind of led me to realize again that I could devote more time to taking care of myself. And today, I have a really active lifestyle. I love to mountain bike and hike and swim and kayak and just spend time in nature, and realizing that it's so much better for you to live a balanced lifestyle. My husband actually, he's probably going to kill me for saying this, but he's actually on a digital detox retreat right now because we have the software company, and so we're surrounded by these EMFs all the time, and we both love to hike and mountain bike and kayak, and so he finally just said, I just need to go. I need to get away. And so that's something that we've struggled too, as being small business owners, is tend to be workaholics, be out of balance. And so that's something that we struggle with a lot, in saying, okay, time out. It's time to step away and decompress. And because I think when we're more rested,
then we can become more creative. So you figured that out early on, though.
Well, I wouldn't say early on. Like I said, I think there were several years there where I was my own worst, enemy at that. But I think today it's even more important since people are, as you say, digitally connected 24/7. I remember telling my senior team that they had to take a vacation without taking their laptop or cell phone.
Nice.
And, I thought I was doing them a favor and that I was teaching them how to disconnect, and about half of them couldn't do it. They were like, we don't want to do that because there's too much work when we come back, And so it's really important today, I think, when people go home and they're still working. It's we didn't have all that technology in the early days. We still had phone calls late at night and that type of thing, but
Yeah.
no one had the cell phone, at their ear, or the laptop,
The tablet, the
5 in the
computer,
morning.
yeah.
Really.
Yeah, it's gotten a little crazy. And there wasn't a lot of digital technologies back then, other than a telephone and maybe a copier. I can't imagine today running my business without Google Docs, without email. So what kind of systems did you guys put in place back then?
Well, I don't know if we had that word systems, but I think technology is a great tool that, everyone depends on today, but really it should enhance a basic organizational structure that you have already. We've always found that if you go into certain buildings, or in our case, distribution centers, that don't have good basic organizational management in place, the technology doesn't help them a lot of times.
Right.
And so I think actually maybe it's an advantage for us to grow up in that era that we didn't rely on technology to gain some of that background. So everyone had the same tools. I remember we had our first computer in 1983 and really started it in 84. And at that point, it was a very scary situation because customers, when they were calling in, they didn't say, I want 25 pounds of whole wheat flour. They just gave us these 5-digit numbers. And
Yeah.
I was really worried that we were going to lose some connection to
Right,
our,
the meaning.
to our customer.
Yeah.
And realizing that, that you maintain those relationships in other ways, not wasting time reading, orders back and forth. But technology has done an incredible thing. I remember, I think it was the early 90s or maybe late 80s, we got our first fax machine. And I was still doing the purchasing a lot of times. And so I would able to fax my orders to suppliers like at 4 in the morning when I could go in and not be distracted.
Yeah.
And to me, the efficiencies went through the roof. Oh my God, we could do all these things with this fax
With
machine.
this fax machine.
Now, here we are today. Who's got a fax machine? Or
Right.
Who cares about a fax machine? So
Right.
It's been amazing to see the changes.
Yeah, and I always tell our customers and our clients, we've done a lot of business and technology consulting, that, tools need to either help you be more productive, more effective, more efficient, lower your costs, save you money. If these tools can't do that, then you shouldn't be using them, and they should simplify your workload. They should simplify your work life, and if the learning curve is just way too huge, you shouldn't be using that system. It's not the right system for you. So I think people just think, I got to jump on Pinterest because Pinterest is going to make me a lot of money right now. It's very image based, and so I should post all my photos on Pinterest. Well, you know what? If your target audience isn't hanging out on Pinterest, maybe that's just not the right tool for you to use. But nothing against Pinterest, because I love Pinterest. But I totally get that, and what you're saying with the whole, if the management structure isn't in place to begin with, the tools aren't going to help you.
Yeah.
So that's the bottom line.
A lot of technology needs an ROI, and
Yeah.
there's things that I think they're very expensive. They they're costly to implement, and what is the benefit?
Yeah.
Does it have an ROI in a reasonable period of time? You have to really crunch those numbers.
That's right, the return on investment, absolutely. So let's talk about your IPO experience. So you've built Mountain People's Warehouse. You're growing at a 50% rate each year, and then you decide to take the company public. Why and how did you decide to do that?
Well, we grew, I think in 96, late 95, Mountain Peoples was about 200 million in sales. And I realized that going forward, that there needed to be a strong national player. And I hooked up with my friend who ran a similar sized company on the East Coast. We decided to put the two companies together, and created UNFI, or United Natural Foods. And we thought we'd go public, after we got organized, and it turned out we did that, I think, November of 96. But the attraction was, there's a couple things. One is it's the cheapest capital out there. We still didn't have any investors into the company. I'd never, sold percentages to any minority investor. We had banking relationships, and that's how we funded the business. But the idea of raising that kind of capital through a public offering, and then being able to build have the capital to acquire companies, have the capital to build new warehouses. I saw the rise of the Whole Foods and the Wild Oats. I really thought those guys were going to eventually dominate, across the country. I saw that the supermarkets of the world were going to be carrying more and more of our products, and that we needed to have a national presence for the Safeways and the Krogers.
And the Safeways, Krogers, and who else was a major mainstream player? Was it H-E-B in Texas?
Yeah, there's H-E-B and Publix in Florida, and Wegmans, and but all of them back then were still, I would say,
wait and see.
There were some that were into it, some that weren't. But today every supermarket has a pretty significant presence in natural and organic. So those bets paid off. We were able to, after we went public, acquire some of our larger competitors around the country, and we ended up being able to fund our growth, keep up with Whole Foods and Wild Oats and all the other large accounts that we had. And so I was terrified of the experience. I felt like you read all these things about people that go public and they're only managing their earnings from quarter to quarter, and would that change our company culture? Would that change me? Would it change, and what I realized is I think you can still be who you are and be a public company. I don't think you have to change anything. You have to tell those people the truth. You can't tell them that you're going to do 20 million and then only do 10, or they're going to chop your head off. But if you tell them you're going to do 20 and you do 30, they will love you.
Right.
And you can wear purple high tops to the meetings and have long hair, and they don't care.
Yeah.
So it's just really about
setting expectations.
Setting the right expectations, and if you do that, then you don't. All those worries about managing quarter to quarter don't have. We never did anything different after we were a public company that we wouldn't have done as a private company. But I think we always had that conservative expectations, and it helped us out.
And so you were concerned, your worst fear was, is it going to change me? Is it going to change the company culture? And so none of those fears obviously played out. But I would love to talk a little bit more about your company culture, because I think that's just so important in running a company. Tell me about the company culture at UNFI today.
Well, I think we were in the business of selling organic and natural food. We were in the business of healthy lifestyle. And, I think that kind of morphed into the trendy buzzword of sustainable lifestyle and sustainability. I think I realized that we didn't need to just focus on food, that we could talk about more of a sustainable business model, which includes, managing or running your facilities with renewable energy. We've got solar power in a lot of our facilities now. We've got zero waste programs going on. We have several green programs with the employees that helps them focus on less resource uses. We have most of our buildings are now LEED certified buildings, which really it costs a little bit more up front, but they focus on again building with renewables, building with recycled materials, energy efficient, all that type of thing. So I think when we expanded that, and we looked at trying to involve the employees more in a wider focus of sustainability. And it's been, I think, really successful. I think people really appreciate working for a company that has that kind of that mission. And our people out in the field who are talking to the customers, I think they really believe in what we're doing. And mission-driven companies, ultimately, I think, can outcompete those companies that aren't mission-driven. It's just a fact of life. And several of the companies I know that have done that, Whole Foods is one of them, have been really successful.
Right, right. Talk about the focus on corporate social responsibility some more, and the labeling of genetically modified and engineered foods. Talk about why this is just so important today, because there's so many people, like organic farming is just so, especially where we live here in Nevada County, organic farms are just so popular. It's our norm. But I think for a lot of people out there, I would love for you to explain why that's just so important.
Well, I'll just touch on the genetically engineered foods first. Being involved in the organic business and watching all the farmers convert to organic and seeing the organic acreage explode over the years, it really made us feel like we were having a positive contribution. And in the late 90s, early 00s, when the genetically engineered foods started being introduced, I realized it's a threat to our organic integrity, and that we needed to try and battle these biotech companies. We helped fund several groups that were trying to get labeling, mandatory labeling, but it was very difficult. It's a very strong lobby, as you know. The most successful thing we've done with the GMOs is to help found the Non-GMO Project, which is a volunteer labeling which certifies to the consumer that the product's been tested, there's no any evidence or traces of GMOs, and that the companies are on a GMO avoidance program, because they're everywhere. And unless a company really dedicates itself to avoiding them, it's easy for drift and segregation issues to contaminate some of the products, even if you think you're buying the best quality. So today it's a huge success. The Non-GMO Project has like 12,000 products. Whole Foods has mandated that everything in their stores will be needing to be labeled unless they have the Non-GMO Project's verification form. So, we're really, really proud of the work that Unify has done with the Non-GMO Project and with the industry as a whole. So that's, I think, one of our really significant contributions in the last several years.
Yeah, that gives us a lot of hope, definitely. And I mean, that's a subject that I could talk about forever. Mm-hmm. But let's go ahead and move on. I want to talk about your leadership qualities a little bit more, because even though this interview is a lot about the success of UNFI, it really starts with the leadership, and so I would love for you to describe yourself, how you would describe yourself as a leader. What attributes do you have as a leader?
Well, I guess I am somebody that likes to stay in the background. It took me a long time to realize that I guess I needed to be a leader, and I needed to step out in front and help people through the process. But over time, I learned some of those skills. I always thought leading by example was the best thing. If you want people to do something, a certain behavior, they better see that you're modeling that behavior. So I think I always demonstrated hard work and integrity and passion and dedication to the job and to our mission. And I think for most people, they were able to grab onto that and follow suit. I think also there's just some basic things about being both in business and being a leader that I think are common sense. I mean, I always felt like you treat your employees, you treat your customers, you treat your suppliers like you'd want to be treated yourself. You be nice. The golden rule stuff isn't a bad idea. There's so many people that sometimes they get into business and maybe they're nice to their customers, but they're really mean to their suppliers, they're mean to their employees, they don't foster the respect and treat people with dignity. And I think those are things that if you do that, people respond really positively. I felt like our suppliers were always wanting to support us because we treated them with kindness and dignity, and the employees responded as well. I remember at one point early on, we decided to give every employee a 15-minute massage during the week, and it was a small thing, but it was just kind of like, this is to say thanks. Hopefully we take a little stress off you, and we brought, we had 7 people working at the time.
Nice.
So 7 massages, wasn't a big investment. And at the end of that program, we were massaging like 600 people.
Wow.
So we realized that it had outgrown. We didn't have room for any team of masseuses. But little things like that you do, I think, really pay dividends.
Yeah, and it comes back tenfold over and over. So, speaking of leaders, you're a quiet leader, you lead by example. Are there any leaders out in the world today that you admire, whether they're running an organization or just people out there that are making things happen?
Yeah, some of the companies we deal with today, I have great admiration for. They not only have run very successful companies, but they've also are very mission focused. They've been able to kind of keep their values, and even as they've grown up, Walter Robb, who's the co-CEO of Whole Foods, is one of my good friends and somebody I really respect and admire. That company, I think, is unbelievable to see where they've gone over the years. And some of the other suppliers I really admire. Gary Hirschberg at Stonyfield Farms has done an amazing job. George Seaman, who's the CEO of Organic Valley, they're now almost $1 billion co-op in the dairy field. And then I think Aaron Stevens at Nature's Path Cereal is really strong integrity, passion, and again, with the success. So it's really nice to see. Those are a few that I can think of. I'm sure there's many more. Great.
Okay, Michael, now that you've accomplished just all this amazing success in your business, where do you go from here? Where does someone like you go next? What's your next vision?
It's funny because some people that I've met along the way, I guess they are truly entrepreneurs, and they look at life as going from one thing and starting something new. And in that respect, I don't feel like I'm an entrepreneur at all. I have no desire to start another business. I birthed this one. I took it through its teenage years. It's in midlife or whatever it is now, and it's on its own, and I'm proud of it. But I have no desire to go through all that pain and agony again. I'm focused on quality of life, and the things that really attract me now are living off back to my original vision, living off the land, growing our own food, raising our own animals. I've been blessed to have 2 young children in my life, and so I'm able to spend a lot of time with my 6-year-old son, my 14-year-old daughter, and staying active, staying healthy, living the healthiest lifestyle you can, reducing the stress, and the thing we're all supposed to do on this planet is to seek happiness and be happy. And you can do that, I think, if you have the quality of life that we all know we can find. And health's a big part of that. And I'm really happy to say my lifestyle today is as healthy as it's been, since the beginning. Of course, it's easier when I'm not having to work all the time now. But,
right.
I still think you can incorporate some of those things, as we said, into your daily business routine. You just have to work at it.
Yeah, I know I certainly do. I get up in the morning, and if I don't get my workout in, whether it's yoga or a little hike or bike ride, it's not going to happen. So I have to definitely schedule that in. So I hear you. Let's talk about I want to actually step back a little bit and talk about, to all the audience that's watching Life Legacy Project, they're looking up to you and they're coming to you and saying, what advice would you give me? So what advice would you give someone who has a dream to start their own business? If someone came to you and just said, Michael, I want to start my own business, what would you say to them?
Well, the simple, I think, response would be do something you love, do something you're passionate about, do something that every morning you're really excited to do. And do it for those reasons, not to make any money. And if it's the right thing for you, I think the money can follow. I know several people have said that over the years, but I really believe it's true. And worst case scenario is you don't make any money, but you're having a lot of fun doing what your passions are, right?
That's right. That's right. So our show is called Life Legacy Project because every day the way in which we live our lives will ultimately become our legacy. So I want to ask you about your legacy and what you are most proud of in the way that you built your company.
Does this mean what's on my tombstone? These questions always remind me I'm getting older, but you get your Lifetime Achievement Awards and that kind of thing. I think the legacy I'm most proud of is that I really helped create an organic food industry that today is just extremely popular. When I started, there was almost no industry at all, and today, organic food is nearing 5% of all sales of food, which may seem like a small percentage, but
it's a lot.
Produce is 12% of all produce sold in America is now organic. Dairy food, 7% of all dairy is organic. These are huge strides, even though it's taken decades. I mean, to me, it's an amazing achievement. And I think we really have 8 out of 10 Americans report buying organic food in the last year.
Yeah.
So, we've really brought it to the mainstream. We've taken some little hippie granola Birkenstock idea and brought it to the mainstream. And we've changed, I think, the way people look at food. So, I'm just thrilled to have been a part of that. And I'd say the only other thing I would say is from a business standpoint is I think, being nice, you can finish first. Sometimes that's not always the case, but I think being loving, kind, treating people with respect and dignity can create a successful situation. That nice guys finish last thing, I don't believe in.
Yeah. Well, you certainly are a nice guy because you've allowed us to come into your beautiful home and have this interview with us today. So thank you so much, Michael. It's been a pleasure interviewing you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Brenda. Pleasure to be here.
All right. Take care.